never imagined my own words would destroy me. When I sat across from my son-in-law that evening, my hands trembling over a cup of chamomile tea, I thought I was finally unburdening years of guilt, not setting fire to everything I had left. It had been raining that night, the kind of steady, cold drizzle that makes the world look gray and washed out. The house smelled faintly of old wood and lemon polish, and I remember thinking how lonely it felt without David, my late husband, humming around the kitchen. The clock ticked too loudly, every second echoing through the emptiness of the house. And then came Ethan, my son-in-law, smiling in that calm, polite way of his. Too calm, too polite. He said he wanted to check on me. That Emma, my daughter, was worried I'd been withdrawing again. I told him I was fine, but he kept looking at me, those dark, patient eyes pulling at something inside me. I don't know what possessed me to speak, but once the words began to tumble out, I couldn't stop them. I confessed everything, the kind of truth that burns you alive once it's spoken. I told him about the money, about the will, about the mistake I made years ago when I transferred the family property, the one my husband wanted divided equally between Emma and her late brother's son, entirely into Emma's name. I thought it was for the best back then. I thought I was protecting my daughter. But when my nephew Daniel found out, he called me a thief. He said I'd stolen his inheritance. And he was right. The guilt gnawed at me every night. I had nightmares of David's disappointed face, of Daniel's tearful eyes when he packed his bags and left, saying he never wanted to see me again. And now, years later, I had finally told someone, Ethan, my own son-in-law, the truth. I remember whispering, I just wanted Emma to be safe. I didn't mean for it to turn into all this. He nodded slowly, too slowly. Of course, Mom, he said. He always called me Mom, even though there was something hollow about it. Everyone makes mistakes. I should have stopped there. I should have noticed the small, red light glowing faintly from his phone, sitting face down on the table. I should have felt the chill running up my spine. But I didn't. I just kept talking, like a fool desperate to be heard. Later that night, after he left, I stood by the window watching the rain fall in ribbons down the glass. My heart felt strangely lighter, as if I'd finally unclenched something that had been buried for too long. But that peace lasted barely a week. It began with the whispers. Emma stopped calling me. When I tried to visit, the maid said she was busy. Then came the message, short and sharp, from Emma herself. We need to talk. My stomach twisted. I knew that tone. It was the same one she used when she found out about her father's hidden letters years ago, the ones that revealed more than I wanted her to know. She came over the next morning, her eyes red, her face pale with anger. Without a word, she took out her phone, pressed play, and there it was, my voice, my trembling, broken voice confessing everything. Every secret, every regret, every sin I thought I'd buried, I could barely breathe. You told Ethan, she said, her voice shaking. You told him what you did, but not me. You lied to me, Mom. You've lied to me my whole life. I tried to explain, tried to tell her I was going to tell her when the time was right, that I was afraid of losing her. But she wouldn't hear it. Do you have any idea what this means? She said. Daniel could sue us. You've ruined everything." Her words cut like glass. She stormed out, leaving the door half open, the wind whistling through the hall. I sank to the floor, numb, my own confession echoing in my head. The betrayal burned deeper because it came from my own family, and yet it was I who had lit the match. For days after, I barely left the house. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every time the phone rang, I jumped, terrified it was Daniel or the lawyer or, worse, Emma again. The guilt that had once whispered now screamed inside me. Then, one evening, Ethan came back, calm as ever. He stood at my door, his tie loosened, that same polite smile on his lips. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," he said softly. "I just thought Emma deserved the truth." But something about the way he said it, the calculated softness, the practiced sorrow made me freeze. His eyes didn't match his tone. There was no guilt there, only something cold and satisfied. I asked him why he recorded me. He didn't even flinch. "For protection," he said. "You've been unstable lately, haven't you? You forget things, say things you don't mean." I needed to make sure I had proof, in case things got complicated. Complicated. That word hung in the air like a noose. I realized then he wasn't protecting anyone. He was planning something, using me as a pawn. When he left, I went straight to Emma's house. She wouldn't answer. The lights were off, the curtains drawn. I stood there in the rain, my heart pounding, knowing something far darker was unfolding, something beyond a simple betrayal. I didn't know then that the recording was just the beginning, because Ethan didn't stop at my confession. He used it, twisted it, turned it into something unrecognizable. And by the time I found out what he'd done, it was already too late. My home, my name, my family, everything was slipping away. And the worst part, I had no idea why. I didn't sleep the night after Ethan came, not really. I lay on the couch with the lamp on, watching shadows move across the ceiling as if the house itself were trying to tell me something. Rain tapped the windows like a kind of Morse code, long and short ticks that kept rearranging into words I couldn't quite read. "Warn her, warn her." At 4 a.m, I slipped my feet into David's old slippers, the ones Emma said I should throw away because grief shouldn't be worn like shoes, and I made tea I didn't drink. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. It felt like the world had gone out of focus, and Ethan's soft voice was the only thing sharp, for protection, in case things got complicated. Complicated. That word worked its way beneath my skin. When daylight finally came, the house looked paler, as if fear had bleached it. I stared at the framed photos on the mantel, David holding baby Emma, Emma at 17 in her green dress, Daniel at 9 with a watermelon grin in the orchard behind our old farmhouse. I had ruined so much by trying to protect one child from the storms I imagined would come. And now an actual storm had arrived, wearing a pressed shirt and a polite smile. At 8, I called Emma. No answer. I called again, left a message that sounded like a stranger was speaking through my mouth. "I love you," I said. "Please, before you do anything, come home." I almost said come to me, and then I stopped. Home. I meant home. But Emma hadn't called this place home since she married Ethan, even though I still kept a toothbrush for her in the upstairs bathroom, the one with the chipped porcelain bird on the sink. By noon, my fear grew into a shape I could feel in my chest. It pressed against my ribs until I put on my coat and walked to town because driving felt too much like commitment. The wind cut through my sleeves, carrying the smell of wet soil and street oil. At the pharmacy, I bought nothing. At the bakery, I stood so long near the cinnamon buns, the cashier asked if I needed help. I shook my head and left. I wasn't hungry. I was looking, I realized, for proof that the world still operated according to rules: buy bread, say thank you, go home, and not according to the thin red light of a phone facing down on a kitchen table. When I rounded the corner by the lawyer's office, my feet stopped moving. Through the glass I saw Ethan sitting with Mr. Klein, our family attorney, the same man who filed David's will and told me in a low, fatherly voice that grief was a series of doors one must walk through. Ethan had his hands folded and a document on the desk in a neat manila folder. Mr. Klein looked grave. I stood outside like a thief staring at her own house, shivering, breath fogging the glass. A moment later, Ethan turned his head. His eyes slid past me as if I were a lamppost. Then he put on that same soft mouth and shook Mr. Klein's hand. The folder disappeared into a leather briefcase. He rose, tapped his watch with 2 fingers, and left through the side door that opened onto the alley. I didn't go inside. I couldn't. I went home with a cold feeling around my ankles, like I had waded into water I hadn't noticed. That evening, Emma showed up. She didn't knock, she still has a key, and the sound of it turning in the lock made my heart leap like a bird at a window. She was in a cream sweater and black pants, her hair pulled back the way she does when she's determined to be reasonable. The moment I saw her, I knew she had come to be reasonable about me. "I'm here to talk," she said, and her voice had edges. "Sit," I whispered. "Please, I made tea." I always say that when I don't know how to stop the bleeding. She didn't sit. "Ethan told me he saw you watching him at Mr. Klein's. Do you think following my husband is going to fix anything?" My mouth opened, then closed. "I wasn't following him," I said, "though I suppose I was. Emma, why was he there?" "To do what you should have done," she snapped. "To ask about the consequences of what you did to Daniel." The name landed between us like a dropped plate. Daniel. I saw him as a boy again, dirt on his knees, the small straightness of him. The summer David died, and I told myself our branch of the family needed more shadow, more shelter, that Daniel was young and strong and would find his way. I hated remembering it like that, the way fear can dress up as love. "I want to make it right," I said. "I will. I can speak to Daniel." "You had years to speak to him," she said, voice shaking. "Instead, you told Ethan, and let him be the one to tell me. He recorded me, Emma." My voice cracked on the word. "Without my consent. He let you hear me at my weakest, out of context, and what context makes stealing Daniel's inheritance okay?" She cut in. "Mom, you have lied to me for years." The lie was an old scab. I had kept the property in Emma's name even after promising David I would reverse it, because every time I tried, Emma was in some new crisis. The job she hated, the move, the miscarriage. she never fully forgave her body for, the loneliness she hid with bright lipstick and carefully composed photographs. I thought I was building her a raft. I did not see the rope I threw around Daniel's neck. I will fix it, I said, and I meant it with everything I had left. But Ethan, he is doing something else. Something... I saw him with Mr. Klein, and the folder... She laughed, a sound like glass. You think everything is a conspiracy when you feel guilty. Ethan is trying to protect our family from a lawsuit. From you. The words were clean and cruel. I let them sit. I had earned some of them. But then she said something that made every nerve in my body wake up. We're moving the trust, she said. Mr. Klein is helping. The house will be safeguarded. Your accounts will be co-managed. It's temporary, until everything is sorted with Daniel. My accounts? I repeated. The bird inside my chest smacked the glass. Co-managed by whom? She looked down. By me and Ethan. I closed my hand around the edge of the counter until I felt bone. You can co-manage my life when you can pick me up from the floor, I said quietly. Until then, ask me. Don't let a man who secretly records your mother tell you the definition of protection. Her face crumpled at the word man, the way it always did when she felt I was accusing her of choosing a husband over a mother. I'm doing what's necessary, she said. Because you won't. She walked to the door, then turned. And don't contact Daniel. Ethan will handle it. When she left, the silence changed shape. It no longer felt like emptiness. It felt like a plan that had been laid over my life, like tracing paper. I looked at the mantel again and realized the photos weren't of us anymore. They were exhibits. I went to my desk and opened the wooden box where I kept the letters David wrote me the year he was sick. There was one I had not read in years, the one he wrote the day before the surgery that didn't work. His handwriting leaned hard to the right when he was frightened. It leaned so far on that page the letters looked as if they were trying to run off the edge. If I'm not there to balance, promise me you'll keep the scales honest, he had written. Not safe, honest. Emma will need safety, yes, but not the kind you buy with someone else's share. Promise me you'll ask for help when you're scared of your own decisions. Promise me you won't let fear make choices in your handwriting. I pressed the paper to my mouth. I've failed you, I whispered into the taste of dust and old ink, but I can still try to balance. That night I called Daniel. His number was still the same. I used to thumb it without pressing call, the way you touch a bruise to check if it hurts. When he answered, he didn't say hello. He said, "Who is this?" And I heard a television in the background, a child's voice, the word grandma, in a tone that made my heart seize. "Daniel," I said, "it's me." Silence. Then the television clicked off. Aunt Ruth. I didn't know if the way he said my name was a question, a warning, or a goodbye. "I want to fix it," I said quickly. "I'm sorry. I am so sorry. I should have... Aunt Ruth," he said again, and I could tell he was standing up now, walking into another room, closing a door. "Are you calling because you want to fix it? Or because you found out what Ethan is doing?" My fingers went cold. "What do you mean?" He exhaled, a rough sound that carried years. "He called me last week. He said he wanted to resolve things between us. He said he has evidence that you acted knowingly and that Emma was a victim of your manipulation. He also said, Daniel stopped, then went on more slowly. He also said there's a way to keep the house in Emma's name and make me whole without going to court if I sign some documents transferring any future claims to a trust he and Emma would control. He was very kind, very persuasive. The room tilted. He never told me. Of course he didn't, Daniel said softly. He wants me on record accepting a settlement that invalidates the terms of the original will. He wants to sink the original intention so it never resurfaces. He's recasting your mistake as criminal, then offering a clean little path over the mud that makes him sheriff of the whole town. I sat down hard. Why are you telling me this? Because even if I was angry, and I was, for years I know Uncle David, he said, voice breaking a little on Uncle. He didn't want Emma punished or me erased. He wanted us to share the orchard and the rental houses and the burden of taking care of you when you got old. That was the balance. And now that I'm old enough to see it, I can see how scared you were. I can also see how someone like Ethan could use that fear. I closed my eyes and saw Ethan's red recording light like a pinprick star. What should I do? Talk to Mr. Klein without Ethan, Daniel said. Ask for the documents he's drafted. If they refuse, that's a sign. And... He hesitated. Keep records. And Aunt Ruth? Yes. Don't be alone with him, he said. He called me from a number I couldn't trace, then texted from a different one. He's careful. People are only careful like that when they want to disappear the trail. After we hung up, I sat in the dark and tried to breathe without making noise. I felt both 17 and 70. The age when you think love will save you and the age when you know it won't. I went to the kitchen and opened the drawer where David used to keep the old cassette recorder he used for dictating notes. It was still there, heavy and honest. No tiny lights, a real click when it started. I set it on the table and pressed record, listening to the wheel turn. My name is Ruth, I said into the coil of night, and I am going to tell the truth in order, so I don't let my fear rearrange it for me. I spoke until my voice steadied. The next morning, I called Mr. Klein's office and asked for a private appointment. His assistant tried to say he was booked, then stopped and put me on hold. When she returned, her voice was different, like she had turned her chair to the door to make sure no one was listening. He can see you at 11, Mrs. Hale. Side entrance. When I arrived, the side door was already open. The hallway smelled like paper and coffee, and I could hear the low hum of the copier. Mr. Klein met me in his office with a look that said he had aged since yesterday. He closed the blinds, sat down, and put both hands on the desk as if he needed his own body to testify. I can't tell you everything, he said without preamble, but I can ask you questions you should answer in writing, and I can show you a list of documents whose titles are not covered by privilege because their titles alone are public record. He slid a sheet across the desk. I looked down. The third line was a stone to the chest. Temporary co-management authorization, Ruth Hale accounts. Beside it, a date, yesterday. I heard the copier hum again and thought, absurdly, that it sounded like a bee trapped behind glass. Who initiated this? I asked. Your daughter signed the request, he said, choosing each word like a piece off a game board, but the drafter was Mr. Ethan Hale. My stomach turned. Hale, I repeated. He took our name when he married her. He said he wanted to belong. Mr. Klein's eyes softened for a moment that made me feel both seen and unbearably naked. Do you have reason to believe he recorded you without your consent? Yes, I said. I heard it. Emma played it for me. Then you must assume there are more recordings, he said, and that he is counting on your guilt to make you quiet. The room was very still. I realized then that the plan tracing my life had a missing edge, and that missing edge was me standing up. I folded my hands and felt my pulse where the skin is thin. What do I do first? I asked. First, Mr. Klein said, you go home. You don't answer the door unless it's your daughter alone. You lock your accounts. You draft a statement of timeline and intention, including your husband's written wishes. And then you ask yourself the most dangerous question. What does Ethan gain if you become legally incompetent? The word incompetent rang like a dropped key. Somewhere in the building a phone started ringing, frantic and insistent, and no one answered it. I thought of the chamomile tea going cold while I confessed into the red light. I thought of Emma's cream sweater and my own old slippers, and Daniel's voice saying, "Don't be alone with him." I stood. "If he wants me small," I said, feeling something uncoil at the base of my throat, "then I will have to be very large." "Good," Mr. Klein said, and the corner of his mouth lifted as if he had been waiting to hear those words for years, because I believe he's counting on the opposite. When I stepped back out into daylight, the rain had finally stopped. The streets smelled like wet iron and a faint sweetness I couldn't place, maybe someone's cologne carried on the air. I held my purse close and started home, feeling both hunted and somehow newly sharp. At the corner I looked up and saw a car idling across from my house. Windows tinted, engine purring like a cat, deciding whether to stay. I didn't go inside. I walked past, slow as a woman coming home from the market, and kept walking, my heart a drum. When I turned the next corner, I took out the old cassette recorder from my bag and clicked it on. The sound of the tape rolling comforted me the way a heartbeat does when you press your ear to a loved one's chest. I wasn't going to run anymore. I was going to watch. I was going to listen. And if Ethan was careful, I would learn to be careful too, only not to hide, but to reveal. I didn't know the worst of it yet. I didn't know about the safe deposit box, or the letter with my forged signature, or the way Emma would look at me in the kitchen when she understood. I didn't know what Ethan had already moved, or who was helping him. I only knew the story had shifted in my hands, the way a knife shifts when you finally take it by the handle instead of the blade. The car with the tinted windows stayed outside my house for 3 straight days. Sometimes it was gone in the morning, but by evening it would reappear always in the same spot, engine humming low, a silent reminder that someone was watching. I stopped closing the curtains. I wanted whoever it was to know that I saw them too. Inside, the house had become a museum of my mistakes. Every photograph, every letter, every dusty trinket from my past seemed to whisper the same thing. You trusted the wrong man. I moved slower now, listening for sounds that didn't belong, a creak on the back porch, a soft knock that vanished when I went to check, Sleep became a stranger, replaced by that tight knot of dread that lives somewhere between my heart and throat. On the fourth morning, I found an envelope slipped under my door. No stamp, no address, just my name in Ethan's unmistakably neat handwriting. I tore it open with trembling fingers. Inside was a printed transcript, my own words from that cursed recording. Every line of my confession, neatly formatted, followed by Ethan's commentary in italics. Statement admits awareness of misconduct. At the bottom, one final sentence in bold. This will be presented if necessary. I sank to the floor, clutching the paper as though I could crush it into dust. It wasn't just blackmail. It was a warning. Ethan wanted me scared, compliant, and worse, he was good at it. That afternoon, Emma called. Her voice was cold, professional, a tone I'd never heard her use with me. "Mom, Mr. Klein said you visited him," she said flatly. "I did," I replied. "He showed me the authorization form. You signed it. It's for your protection," she said. "My protection? Or Ethan's?" Her silence said everything. "I won't let him take what's left of your father's legacy," I whispered. "You already did," she snapped, and the line went dead. I sat there staring at the receiver long after the call ended, until the silence began to buzz in my ears. The house suddenly felt too big, too full of ghosts. I turned on the old cassette recorder again, the one thing that still felt solid, real, honest. "My daughter doesn't see it yet," I whispered into the microphone. "But he's building a story, one where I am unstable, confused, dangerous even. He'll use the recording, the accounts, the papers, everything to make me disappear." The words hung in the room like smoke. For the first time, I began to wonder if Ethan's plan wasn't just about money. Maybe he wanted something more: control, reputation, maybe even revenge for something I didn't yet understand. That night, I heard the back door rattle. Not loud, just a soft metallic click, as if someone was testing it. I froze, the cup in my hand trembling. The lights were off. The only glow came from the streetlight outside, filtering through the curtains in thin orange bars. I waited, breath shallow. The sound came again, then footsteps slow, deliberate on the wooden porch. I grabbed the nearest thing I could find, David's old cane, and moved toward the kitchen. The doorknob twisted once, then stopped. Silence. I stood there, every nerve awake, until I heard the car engine start outside. Then it was gone. When I finally turned on the porch light, I saw it muddy footprints on the steps. Someone had been there. I called Daniel the next morning. "He's escalating," I said, voice shaking. "I figured he might," he replied grimly. "He wants you to look paranoid. That way, when you try to fight back, no one believes you. He came to my house. Then you need witnesses," he said. "People who'll vouch for your sanity. Friends, neighbors, anyone. Start documenting everything." Document. That word became my lifeline. I began writing every detail, every visit, every sound, every strange call. I filled 3 notebooks within a week. I even recorded myself reading them aloud each night, just in case. Then, one evening, I got an unexpected visitor. It was Mrs. Howard, my neighbor for 20 years, a retired school teacher with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue. She'd brought pie, as she often did when gossip brewed on our quiet street. "I saw that car again," she said, setting the pie on the counter. "Funny thing, it was parked near the post office yesterday. Same plates." My heart skipped. "Did you see who was inside?" "A man," she said, frowning. "Dark hair. Looked like your son-in-law. You know, the polite one who never sweats." I nearly dropped the plate. "Ethan?" "Well, I wasn't going to say it out loud," she said. "But yes, that confirmed it. He wasn't being subtle anymore. He wanted me to know. He wanted me scared enough to sign whatever papers he'd prepared. But he underestimated one thing fear can also make you sharp. The next morning, I went back to Mr. Klein's office with Daniel. Klein's eyes widened when he saw us together. "I think we should all stop pretending this is a family misunderstanding," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Ethan is trying to have me declared mentally incompetent." Klein hesitated, then slid another paper across the desk, one I hadn't seen before. "This was filed 2 days ago," he said softly. "A preliminary request for evaluation under guardianship consideration." It was official. Ethan wasn't just stealing from me. He was erasing me. My hand shook as I traced the printed words. "He says I'm confused, unstable, that I confessed to fraud because I couldn't distinguish fact from memory." Daniel clenched his fists. "He's framing her," he said. "He's turning her confession into proof of senility." Klein nodded grimly. "It's not just manipulation. It's strategy. If the court agrees, everything you own becomes theirs by law, including the house." For a long time, none of us spoke. The air felt thick, too heavy for breathing. Then, slowly, an idea began to take shape in my mind. Something reckless, but maybe the only way to save myself. "If he wants proof I'm unstable," I said, "maybe I should give him something he doesn't expect. Let him think I'm breaking while I record everything." Daniel looked at me, startled. "You mean bait him?" "Yes," I said quietly. "I'll invite him here. I'll apologize. I'll say I'm ready to sign whatever he wants, and while he thinks he's winning, I'll be recording the truth." It was dangerous, but I'd been cornered before in my life, by illness, by grief, by guilt, and every time I'd survived by pretending to bend until I could push back. That night I wrote Ethan a message. "I'm tired. Let's end this. Come tomorrow." "I'll sign." I barely slept. My hands shook as I set up the old recorder under a stack of papers on the kitchen table. The next morning, when the doorbell rang, I almost didn't open it. But then I thought of David, his words about keeping the scales honest, and I did. Ethan stepped inside, smiling. "I'm glad you've come to your senses," he said softly. He sat down, spreading papers across the table, legal documents, crisp and cold. "Just sign these, and we can all move on. You'll be comfortable, protected." I forced my voice to tremble. "I just want peace, Ethan." "Of course," he murmured, sliding the pen toward me. "You've had such a hard time. Everyone knows it." That last sentence, the way he said it, made my blood run cold. There it was again, The story he'd been building, the one where I was the frail, confused old woman who didn't even know what she was signing. But this time, the red light wasn't on his phone. It was on mine. Ethan's pen glided across the papers with the smooth confidence of someone who'd already won. I could hear the faint rasp of ink against the crisp sheets, a sound that suddenly felt louder than my own heartbeat. He looked up once, catching my eye, and smiled. Not kindly, not cruelly, just assured, the kind of smile people wear when they believe they control every piece on the board. "Here," he said softly, sliding the first page toward me. "This one just formalizes what you already agreed to co-management of your assets. Nothing drastic." I nodded, feigning the tremor of a weary woman. "You've thought of everything, haven't you?" He chuckled lightly. "I just want what's best for Emma, for all of us, really." His voice was honeyed, but the words were poison. I could see it in the way his fingers lingered over the document, the way his eyes flicked briefly toward my recorder, hidden beneath the scattered bills and old letters. But he didn't see it, not yet. I leaned back in my chair, hands folded. "Do you remember that night you came here and I told you everything?" I asked quietly. He smiled again, a faint mockery of empathy. "Of course I do. You were emotional. I understand that." "Do you?" I whispered. "Because it's strange you seemed so calm that night, almost like you were waiting for me to say something particular." His eyes narrowed slightly. "You were upset. I didn't want to interrupt you." "Yet you remembered every word," I said. "Every pause, every breath, enough to write a transcript." He didn't blink. "You shouldn't be upset about that, Mom. It was just precaution." "Precaution against what?" He exhaled softly through his nose, patient, almost pitying. "Against confusion. You've been under stress. Emma and I thought it might help to have things recorded, just in case you—" "Forget?" I interrupted. My voice had stopped shaking now. "Or contradict myself later?" Ethan's jaw flexed. "You're twisting this. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to protect this family from more damage." The word protect had begun to sound like a gunshot every time he said it. I looked at the papers again. His signature was already there, neat and deliberate. Next to mine there was a small sticky note with a line written in his handwriting. "Sign here, Mom." Even his manipulation came wrapped in politeness. I pretended to sigh, taking the pen. "I suppose it's easier for you this way," I murmured. "If I just give in." "It's easier for everyone," he said, leaning forward, his tone softening. "You can stop worrying. We'll take care of everything." That "we" was the sharpest knife in his sentence. I thought of Emma, my daughter, who once refused to sleep without holding my hand, who now held Ethan's instead. He had taken her fear and turned it into loyalty. I looked up, meeting his eyes. "I trust you," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. And that's when he made his first mistake. He relaxed. The shoulders that had been coiled finally dropped, and he let out a breath that sounded almost like victory. He didn't notice my phone light flicker red beneath the papers. He leaned closer. "You're doing the right thing," he said. "After all, once this is signed, the court petition won't even be necessary." "The court petition?" I asked, letting my voice tremble. "What petition?" For half a second, his mask slipped. Just half a second, but it was enough. His mouth opened, closed, then opened again. "It's nothing you need to worry about," he said quickly. "Just standard paperwork, protection clauses, in case you have another episode." "Episode?" I repeated softly. He nodded slowly, watching my reaction. "You don't remember last week? You called Emma at 3 a.m. You said someone was breaking into your house. You were screaming, but when I got here, the doors were locked. No one was outside." My blood ran cold. That had happened, but it hadn't been imagined. The muddy footprints were real. I had seen them with my own eyes. But he was already rewriting the story, erasing truth one line at a time. "I suppose you're right," I said finally, forcing a frail smile. "Maybe I was confused." His eyes softened again, satisfied. "It's all right," he said. "We just want to make sure you're safe." I nodded, signing the first line. My hand shook deliberately, the pen dragging slightly across the paper. I could feel the recorder still running, capturing his words, every subtle threat, every manipulative phrase. When I finished, I slid the papers back to him. "All done." "Good," he said, gathering them neatly. "You'll see this is for the best." He stood, tucking the documents into his briefcase, and that's when I said it. "You're right, Ethan. I think it's best if we put everything on record for everyone's protection." He froze, his head turned sharply toward me. "What do you mean?" I tilted my head. "Just that it's smart to record important conversations. Don't you agree?" A flicker of something panic maybe crossed his face. "Are you saying you recorded this?" I smiled faintly. "Oh, don't worry. You taught me well." For the first time since this nightmare began, Ethan's composure cracked. His eyes hardened, his voice dropping low. "You're making a mistake," he said quietly. "If you think you can play games, I'm not playing anything," I said. "I'm just telling the truth, every word of it." He stared at me for a long time, the polite mask gone now, replaced by something cold and dangerous. Then he picked up his briefcase. "You shouldn't have done that," he said, his voice almost a whisper. "You don't understand the consequences." He left without another word. The door slammed hard enough to rattle the glass. I waited until I was sure his car had gone before I picked up the phone and called Daniel. My hands were shaking again, but this time from adrenaline, not fear. "I have it," I said. "A full recording. His voice, his lies, everything." Daniel exhaled sharply. "Good. Don't tell Emma yet. Let's make sure it's safe first. Make a copy and hide it." I did. I made 3. One on my laptop, one on a flash drive I hid inside David's old Bible, and one I mailed to Daniel with a note that read simply, "If anything happens to me, play this." The next day, the car didn't come. The street was empty. But peace didn't return. It never really does when you know the storm hasn't passed, only paused. That night, Emma called again. Her voice was soft this time, almost breaking. "Mom," she whispered, "Ethan says you threatened him. I closed my eyes. He's lying." "I don't know what to believe anymore," she said, crying quietly. "He says you're recording people now, that you're paranoid, that you've lost touch with reality. He's twisting it, Emma. Just like he twisted my confession. There was silence on the other end. Then, softly, she said, "He told me you gave him everything willingly." I almost laughed, a tired, bitter laugh. "Tell me, Emma," I said, "did you see me sign, or did he just tell you I did?" She hesitated. "He showed me the papers, and you believed him." "I don't know what to believe anymore," she whispered again, and hung up. I sat in the dark kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator, the only sound. My reflection in the window looked unfamiliar, sharper, colder, not the frail old woman Ethan wanted the world to see. He had his story. Now, I had mine, and only one of them could survive. For 2 days, silence hung around the house like a thick fog. No calls, no cars outside, no sudden knocks at the door, just that eerie, deceptive quiet that always comes before something breaks. I tried to rest, but every time I closed my eyes, I heard Ethan's voice echoing in the back of my mind. "You don't understand the consequences." I kept the recorder beside me on the nightstand. It had become more than a machine now. It was my witness, my defense, my only companion that didn't twist my words. I replayed the conversation over and over, memorizing every detail, the subtle threats, the manipulations, the arrogance. It was all there, carved in his own voice like an invisible noose tightening around his neck. On the 3rd morning, the phone rang. I hesitated before answering, expecting Emma's exhaustion or Ethan's fury. But it was Daniel. His voice sounded urgent. "Aunt Ruth, listen to me carefully," he said. "Ethan's been using your name. My blood ran cold. Using it how?" He sighed. "He forged your signature on a letter to the bank. I only found out because the bank manager used to be one of Uncle David's old clients. He called me to verify. The letter authorizes Ethan full financial access to your trust accounts. It's dated last week. Last week, the same day he'd come to my house with those papers. He's preparing to drain everything," Daniel continued. "Once it's done, he'll disappear. You'll be declared incompetent, and he'll control the estate. The timing lines up perfectly." I sat down slowly, gripping the edge of the table. "I have the recording," I whispered, "enough to expose him." "Then we use it," Daniel said firmly. "But not yet. We need him to think he's safe. If we go to the police now, he'll spin it. He'll say you're delusional. But if we wait until he tries to finalize the transfer, we'll catch him red-handed." "And Emma?" I asked quietly. "Does she know?" There was a long pause. "She's beginning to doubt him," he said finally. "She called me last night. Said she found something strange." "What? A photo," Daniel said. "An old one. You, Uncle David, and her father." "Her real father." I froze. "What do you mean?" He exhaled heavily. "She said Ethan found it in your attic weeks ago. Said it upset him, said it made him curious about your past. Aunt Ruth, who was the man in that photo?" My throat tightened. The years I'd tried so hard to bury suddenly rose like ghosts clawing their way through dirt. I could still see that man's face, James Holloway, the mistake that had nearly cost me my marriage 50 years ago. Emma never knew. No one did. Not even David. Not completely. And now Ethan had found proof of it. Daniel, I whispered. Ethan knows something he shouldn't. There was a beat of silence on the line, then Daniel's low, steady voice. Then that's his leverage. That's why he's not just after money. He's after control, total control. If he exposes that secret, he knows you'll lose Emma forever. The phone trembled in my hand. I pressed my palm to my chest, as if I could steady my heartbeat. He's using my past against me. Yes, Daniel said quietly, but now we know his motive. After we hung up, I sat alone in the kitchen, the clock ticking too loudly again. The truth pressed down on me like a physical weight. Ethan wasn't just greedy, he was strategic. He'd studied me, learned every regret, every weakness, and now he was weaponizing the one secret that could shatter what little family I had left. By evening, I couldn't sit still. I called Emma. This time, she answered right away. "Mom," she said softly, as though she'd been waiting for me. "Emma," I began carefully, "I need you to come over, alone." She hesitated. "Ethan doesn't want me." "I know," I interrupted. "That's exactly why you should." After a long pause, she whispered, "I'll come in the morning." When she arrived, she looked different, tired, thinner, eyes rimmed red. She didn't hug me, but she didn't pull away either. I made tea, just like I had the night this all began. She sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around her cup. "Something's been off," she said quietly. "He's been distant, secretive." I found messages on his phone, hidden under another name, bank messages, lawyers, some woman named A. Holloway. The name hit me like lightning. "Holloway?" I whispered. She frowned. "Yes." "Do you know her?" My lips parted, but no words came. A. Holloway. The name wasn't new. It was Alice Holloway James's daughter, my daughter's half-sister, my secret. I swallowed hard. "Emma, there's something I never told you." Her eyes flickered with confusion. "What do you mean?" "Before I met your father, there was someone else, James Holloway. It was complicated. We were young, foolish, and he left before I knew what I wanted. Years later, I found out he had a daughter, Alice. I tried to reach out, but it was too late. David never knew. I buried it." Emma stared at me, stunned. "So Ethan, yes," I said, tears welling in my eyes. "He found out. He must have contacted her." She looked down at her hands, trembling. "He told me she was just a business partner. But now?" Her voice cracked. "Mom, what if he's using her to blackmail you?" I nodded slowly. "That's exactly what he's doing." For a long time, neither of us spoke. The silence was thick with memories, unspoken pain, and the sharp sting of betrayal. Then, finally, Emma whispered, "I believed him over you. I let him turn me against you." I reached across the table, taking her hand. "He's clever. That's what he does. He twists love until it looks like guilt." Her fingers tightened around mine. "What do we do now?" I met her eyes. "We trap him, but this time, together." She nodded, wiping her tears. "Tell me what to do." That night, we laid out the plan. I'd already recorded his threats, but now we needed something stronger proof of intent. Emma would confront him, say she knew about Holloway, about the forgery, and that she wanted out. He'd come to control her, manipulate her, maybe even confess, and when he did, we'd be ready. As we spoke, I saw my daughter differently for the first time in years, not as the child I'd ruined with my protection, but as the woman she'd become, sharp, hurting, but brave. When she left that night, she hugged me tightly. "I'm sorry, Mom," she whispered. "Don't be," I said softly. "We both fell for the wrong man. Now let's finish this." After she left, I sat in the dark, the old cassette recorder humming softly beside me. For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to hope. But underneath it, a quiet dread still lingered, because men like Ethan don't break easily. They break others first. And deep down, I knew he wouldn't go quietly. I barely slept that night. The wind outside howled through the chimney, carrying the restless sound of something shifting, as if the whole world was waiting for morning to arrive and end this long, suffocating nightmare. I sat by the window, the faint glow of the street lamp painting thin gold lines across my hands. Every few minutes, I glanced at the clock, waiting for dawn. For Emma, for the moment we'd finally see Ethan's mask fall. She arrived just before sunrise. Her face was pale, but her eyes were fierce. She wore her old gray coat, the one her father gave her on her 21st birthday. I remembered how proud he'd been that day, how sure he was she'd never let anyone break her spirit. I prayed he was right. "He's coming," she said quietly as she stepped inside. "I told him we need to talk, that I found out about the Holloways." I nodded, my hands trembling only slightly. "The recorder's ready?" She pulled her phone from her coat pocket, pressing the screen until the small red dot appeared. "Ready." We sat together in the living room, curtains half open, the morning light creeping slowly across the floor. The air felt electric, like the silence before a thunderclap. I could almost hear my heart beating in time with the ticking clock on the mantel. Then came the sound of tires crunching on gravel. Emma's hand found mine. "Stay calm," she whispered. The doorbell rang once, twice. Then, without waiting, Ethan walked in. He never knocked anymore. He moved through my doorway like he owned it. "Morning," he said smoothly, brushing invisible lint from his sleeve. His smile was faint, practiced. "You both look serious." Emma stood facing him. "We need to talk," she said. "Of course," he replied easily, setting his briefcase on the table. "About what?" Her jaw tightened. "About the Holloways, about the forged signatures, about the trust you tried to transfer behind my back." For the first time, the color drained from his face. It was subtle, just a flicker, but I saw it. His eyes darted between us, calculating. "I think you've been listening to your mother again," he said softly, almost pitying. "You know she's been confused lately." "Stop it!" Emma snapped, her voice sharp as glass. "I've seen the proof, the letters, the messages, the fake documents you drafted." He blinked, recovering his composure quickly. "You misunderstand. I was trying to fix things by stealing everything she owns, she cut in. By lying to me? Ethan sighed, rubbing his temples like a man weary of a child's tantrum. Emma, listen to yourself. You're emotional. You're letting her drag you into... I stood up then, slowly, deliberately. My voice came out steady, clear. She's not emotional, Ethan. She's finally awake. He turned to me, that polite veneer cracking. You should sit down, Ruth. You're not well. Oh, I'm very well, I said, taking a step closer. Well enough to record every single word you said to me last week. Every threat, every manipulation, every lie. His eyes widened. You what? Recorded you, I said, my tone calm, almost tender, just like you did to me. He froze, the muscles in his jaw tightening. That's illegal, he said through clenched teeth. I smiled faintly. So was what you did. Emma's phone was still recording, her fingers gripping it tightly by her side. I saw the flash of realization flicker across Ethan's face. He knew now. He'd walked straight into the same trap he'd once set for me. He straightened, forcing a cold smile. You won't get away with this, he said softly. Do you think anyone will believe you? A confused old woman and her hysterical daughter? I have the recordings, the documents, the petition. About that petition, Emma interrupted, pulling a folder from her bag. You mean this one? Ethan's expression faltered. Where did you get that? I asked Mr. Klein for a copy, she said. He told me you'd filed it early. He also told me about the false affidavit you attached, the one claiming my mother tried to attack you. Ethan took a slow step forward, his voice dropping. You don't understand what you're doing, Emma. Everything I did was for us, to secure our future, to clean up the mess she made. Emma's voice broke, but not from weakness, from fury. By destroying her? By protecting us, he shouted suddenly, the mask slipping completely now. Do you think you'd have any of this without me? The business, the house, the reputation, I made you respectable. I kept her from ruining everything. His voice echoed through the house, raw and ugly, and for the first time I saw him as he truly was, not calm, not clever, just desperate. A man cornered by his own lies. I took a deep breath and whispered, That's all I needed. He turned sharply toward me. What? The truth, I said quietly. In your own words. Emma lifted her phone, the red light still glowing. It's all here, Ethan. Every word. For a moment, he looked like he might lunge for it. But then something in his eyes changed, a flash of panic, then realization. He knew it was over. He straightened his jacket, his voice suddenly calm again. You think anyone will care? I'll say you both set me up. A jealous old woman, a bitter daughter. You won't get the chance, I said. Mr. Klein has copies. Daniel has copies. Even the police have one now. His eyes snapped toward me, disbelief flickering across his face. You wouldn't... Oh, I did, I said softly. Yesterday. For a long moment, none of us spoke. The only sound was the clock ticking on the mantel. Then Ethan's shoulders dropped, his arrogance draining like water down a drain. He looked suddenly smaller, older. I loved you both, he said quietly. You don't understand. Emma's voice was like ice. Get out. He hesitated, then turned toward the door. This isn't over, he muttered. Yes, I said. It is. He left without looking back. The sound of his car engine faded into the distance, swallowed by the wind. When silence finally returned, Emma collapsed into the chair, shaking. I knelt beside her, holding her hand. We didn't speak for a long time. There was nothing left to say, only the echo of everything we'd survived. Later that afternoon, Mr. Klein came by. The police had already received the recordings. Ethan's accounts were frozen, the fraudulent documents under investigation. For once, the law was on our side. As the sun set, I stood by the window, watching the orange light spill across the garden. Emma came and stood beside me. He'll go to prison, won't he? She asked softly. I nodded. Yes, but that's not what matters. She turned to me, confused. Then what does? That we learned, I said. That fear doesn't protect us, truth does. She smiled faintly, tears in her eyes. I'm sorry, Mom. I know, I whispered. So am I. We stood there until the sky darkened, the house quiet except for the faint hum of the recorder still running one last time. I pressed the stop button gently and smiled. I think we've finally said enough. Outside, the night was peaceful again. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. Ethan's lies were gone, the ghosts of my past finally silent. I knew the world wouldn't remember my story, but that was all right. I hadn't told it for them. I told it so that when I looked in the mirror, I'd see the truth, not the fear that used to wear my face. And as the last light faded from the sky, I whispered to myself, almost like a prayer, my words destroyed me once,